G'day, we are in the office today. My name's Gavin. If you don't know who I am, some people call me Gash. That's another story. But we are here for another recipe creation video. Tomorrow I am planning on brewing an NIPA. I haven't made the recipe yet. I know I've got a lot of hops in the freezer and a lot of grain and the right grain in the shed to do it. I've done a lot of hazies and IPAs in the past. So I have a pretty good idea. If you have no idea about the beer you're brewing, it's probably best to have a look at my American Stout recipe creation video. It shows you how to go through and find some easy reference so you know what you're doing. Read the BJCP style, and that's how you get an idea what to do. I've brewed a lot of these, so I have a fair bit of knowledge about them. I've also, over the last week or so, been taking notes, writing down whatever I read about different beers, what people are doing these days. So I have a good idea what I'm going to do, but let's just dive in and stop talking and make the recipe. So we'll just jump into Brewfather, press the new recipe button. We'll call this double dry hopped juicy NIPA until I can think of something better. That'll do. Now what I normally do is zoom in, and people always ask how I zoom in and make the bars look bigger. You just press Control and plus, at least on a Windows computer, and that will zoom in. You might have to press it a few times. We'll pick a style. We'll have a look what they have here. They have that BJCP provisional style. I'll choose that, and that should get us in the ballpark of what I want. Now I know what grains I'm planning to use. You could use Pilsner malt or ale malt. I'm probably going to use a mixture of both. I'm going to start with some Gladfield Pilsner malt. You could use any Pilsner malt, it doesn't really matter, but I know I've got Gladfield. And just to start with, I'll throw in 2 kilos. We can up it or lower it later. We press save and it pops it there into your recipe. Now, I could have left that other window open before and continued to add grain and sort of add it all at once, but I just thought I'd show beginners that it adds it to your recipe once you press that save button. So next we'll add some Gladfield ale malt, and I'm going to put another 2 kilos in. We'll do 50-50 for now. I'll probably adjust it later as we get further into the recipe. A lot of the recipes I've been looking at lately use carapils. I don't think it's really essential in this style of beer, but we'll add it anyway. If you can't get carapils, Gladfield have their a similar version called Gladiator, and it might be easier to get sometimes. The brand I have is called Caramel Pilsner by Best Malts, and we'll just start with an average, around 200 grams will do. We might adjust that later as well. And next we'll move on to our flaked grains. Now I've got a new flaked wheat that I haven't used before this time, so I'm going to have a quick look. I don't think the brand, no, they don't have the brand I have, so I'm just going to pick a generic flaked wheat. That one there will do. And we're going to start with around 500 grams. Again, this will be adjusted later. Just putting in rough amounts to start with. I'm also going to add my flaked oats. Again, just a generic brand. Mine happened to be from the supermarket this time, not from a brew shop. And again, we'll start with probably the 500 grams. That will do just to start. And last but not least, I have some wheat malt, some pale wheat malt. So I'm going to add a little bit of that as well, if I can find it. Was it a German light wheat? It's here somewhere. There we go, that's it there. Wheat, malt, pale, Wyman. I'm not going to add another half kilo. I'll probably chuck in 200 grams to start with again. Let's have a look. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm a little bit low in alcohol, so it means I've got to add some more grain. Base grain, I think. So we'll click on that and we'll just up it a little bit. Actually, no. So I'm going to up the Pilsner malt to keep it nice and light. And it's just sort of a guessing game here until I get to where I want to go. Now that's much closer at 6%. I want it a little bit more than that. I'm just checking out the percentages because all of my flake grains I want to add up to about 20%. You know, it's just a rough number. You can probably go a little bit lower, 15%, or you can go up to maybe 25%, or even more if you feel the need. But I'm going to stick around the 20% mark. So the wheat malt, the wheat flaked, and the oats flaked, all around 20% total. So it's really just juggling the numbers here and the amounts till I get near where I want it. I might just raise the wheat a touch. 0.6. That's got the alcohol up in the right area where we want to be. I might raise up the carapils a touch to 0.3. And we're a little bit higher. I want to come down a little bit from that, so I might just drop that down to 7. Make up for that carapils that I added. That looks about right to me. 6.2. That's about right. I'm finishing in the right area here, although I haven't put the yeast or anything in yet, but everything's looking good. The colour's right, alcohol's right. Now, with all these flaked malts and things, I might not get quite the conversion that I'm thinking. It could drop down and I might get under 6%. If that happens, there's a lot of the beers I've been researching lately will have dextrose or sugars added, even some of those Quiet Deeds ones. I haven't mentioned any names before, but there's some of the beers I've been drinking lately that I've really been enjoying, and they've had dextrose or sugar added. And that happens a lot in the bigger beers like the 9%ers and things like that, but there's no harm in doing it here. So, but I think that's going to do me for now. I have around, what have we got up here? That is about 70, that's 73, and nearly 72. That's 75 up there, and nearly 5% carapil, so that's about 80. So that gives us nearly 20% flaked malts and wheat, and that's what I want in my recipe. So we move on to the hops, and I am still, a lot of people won't add a 60-minute addition, but I always like to add just a small 60-minute addition. I think it's good for the beer. I think it does help a little bit with the longevity. I think it's just good to have it there. For bittering hops, I think I'm going to stick with the hops that I'm actually using in the beer. I've been liking the single hop Citra beers lately, so I'm not worried about using a small amount of Citra as a bittering hop, just a small amount. We'll start with 6 grams. Let's give it a 6.9 IBUs. I might add some Mosaic there. I am doing Citra and Mosaic. Everyone knows that I'm mad about Citra and Mosaic and have been for a long time now. But I think it's really hard to go wrong with it. They're just really good. The combination of them together is really good. As I said, I'm hoping that Sabro turns up tomorrow, so I can throw a bit of Sabro in at the end. But for now, that gives me 14 IBUs. That's enough for me. Now the rest, of course, in NIPAs all come usually in the whirlpool. So we'll jump straight to the whirlpool. Now, as I've got it set here, so it's a 10-minute 98-degree hop stand, but that's going to change. So we'll add some more Citra. Again, this is a bit of a guess at the start, the amounts. I'm not sure how much we're going to need. I'll just start playing around with the numbers once I get all the hops in there, and we can see what that looks like they're going to do. The amounts might seem small at first, but because I'm using 3 different hops at each step, I'm using a blend. Of course, that's all going to add up in the end. So we're going to start with something pretty small, maybe a 5 grams. And we put it in, I'm going to do a 30-minute whirlpool. So we'll set that to 30 minutes and click the aroma hop stand. Now I am going to change the temperature. I'm going to drop it down to say 80 for the first step. And it will continue to get cooler the more it whirlpools, of course. And whirlpooling for half an hour. So I'm sort of going to guess what the temperature might be in the 10-minute increments that I'm going to be adding the hops. So now we'll add the mosaic in there. We'll do the same, another 5 grams. 30 minutes whirlpool. And we'll add the Sabro. Hopefully the Sabro turns up tomorrow. Otherwise I'll be subbing it out with something else. I really like to try the Sabro in this mix. I think it'll be good. Otherwise it'll probably be Simcoe. So we've got the 5 grams of each, 15 grams there for the 30-minute whirlpool. That has us up around the 23 IBUs. I'm going to go, I think, somewhere between the middle and the lower end. So maybe somewhere between 30 and 40 IBUs, I think, is what I'll aim for. And as I said, all these things can be adjusted as we go along. It's a bit of a guess at the moment what these hop stands are going to do. So we'll start adding the next batch. And again, Citra, we're going to up the amounts the further along we go. And the reason we do that is simply that you're not going to get as much bitterness out of them because the wort's going to be a little bit cooler and they're not going to be in the wort for as long. So we'll slowly bump that up. So we'll go 10 grams of Citra for 20 minutes. And the hop stand temperature by then, I'm going to guess it's gone down a couple of degrees. Maybe 78. That'll do. I think it's probably a good guess. Maybe, yeah, I think I'll go with that. I'm not going to have the chiller on, but it's going to be going through the chiller, but the chiller's not going to be turned on. I don't want to cool down the wort too much. Not till the end. So we do the same with the mosaic and the Sabro. We can just click that addition there and change the hop and it will keep all the same settings. And the next stand we're going to do is the last one. So we've gone a 30-minute, 20-minute. This will be a 10-minute stand. So we'll go Citra and we'll up the amount of hops again. I will up these ones, might as well go by 5 grams again. And we'll see where we end up. So this will be 15 for 10 minutes, aroma hop stand. And I'll have to drop the temperature down to something like 75, I think. That'll do. So do the same for the mosaic. And the same for the Sabro. So having a quick look here, 30-minute hop stand. Why does it say 84.5? I've made a mistake somewhere. Here. I have not adjusted those two to 80C. That's easy fixed. Just change the temp to 80C for those two. $80. That's much better. Now all the first are at 80. The 3 seconds are at 78 and the other ones are at 75. So just to quickly explain that, at the end of the boil, I'll put on the chiller. I'll bring the whole wort down to about 80 degrees Celsius. I'll then start the timer and put in my first hops for the 30-minute stand. I'll be circulating the wort and trying to do a gentle whirlpool, but I won't have the chiller on. I won't be chilling the wort any further, just from the natural chilling, it will go down a bit. So then I add the 20-minute, and then I add the 10-minute at their timings. I stop the whirlpool for the last 10 minutes and let it sort of settle. And after it's settled, I'll just chill it, the whole thing down. I'll go straight into the fermenter via the chiller. All right. Okay, let's look at the IBUs here. We're at 24. That's a bit low still, isn't it? I want it a bit higher than that. You've got to remember to keep it balanced though. Some might like it down to 24. I'm pretty sure Quiet Deeds, one of their haze train or juice train, is around 25 IBUs. So you might want to keep it there. But There's a thing, with all these big beers about balance, bitterness, alcohol. It's all sort of got to work together. So that's something to think about, but of course, experiment away. There's always exceptions to all the rules. So first thing I'm going to try is just upping the amount of some of these hop stand hops. I'll change the 20 minutes, all these 20-minute ones to 15. And we can have a look there. At least we're up in the zone there. But I want to push it a little bit further than that. I want to be up, 30, maybe another 10 IBUs. So what I'll do is I'll raise the last ones to 20 grams. I think that'll give me some nice flavour. It's not going to add much IBUs really, but it'll give me a lot of flavour. So we'll try that. We'll change them to 20 grams each. 20 grams for the Citra, 20 grams for the Mosaic, and we'll go 20 grams for the Sabro too. Of course, as I said, that still didn't really add much. Would have added a lot of flavour, but didn't add much IBUs. So we might up the first one to 10 grams each. Citra, Mosaic, and the Sabro. Well, that's pushed us up to 30 IBUs. That's much better. You'd probably be happy there. Some people would probably be very happy there, but I still want to push it a little bit more. I don't really think I need to add any more into the whirlpool. It has got plenty of hops there for flavour. So what I think I will do is I'll just up the Citra Mosaic at the 60-minute. And we'll see how that goes. And I think I'll change them to first wort hops, just so it might be a little bit more gentle bitterness, whether you think that works or not. But I think we'll do that. So we'll try 8 grams instead of 6 grams of the Citra. And we'll do that to the Mosaic too. Okay, that's got me to where I want to be, nearly exactly. I could have started, kept upping and upping and upping those whirlpool hops, and they wouldn't have made much change to the IBUs. But just that little change of, 4 extra grams all up has put us where I want to be. That's perfect for me. Now, for those people that don't know what first wort hopping is, simply, instead of waiting for your kettle to come to the boil to add your 60-minute hops, you add them, if you're talking about a Brewzilla, for instance, you pull the basket with the grain in it out, and as soon as you do that, even before you sparge, you can throw your hops into the wort, and you leave them there through the whole sparge, and then bring them up to the boil, etc., and just continue on as normal. But you don't start the 60-minute timer until you've got a rolling boil. It's supposed to give a gentler bitterness. I'm not 100% sure it works, but it's a good thing to try. Onto the dry hops. Now this has got a lot of flavour hops, and there's going to be a lot of aroma there too. So the dry hop is probably not going to be as big as I would normally do it. It's going to be a double dry hop, but I'm going to keep the volume down a little bit. It's a bit of an experiment, but as I said, I've been reading other people's methods, and so I'm going to try out a few different methods. I am going to double dry hop, and I am going to use the same 3 hops. Now the timings is a bit different. I'm going to do it a little bit different this time. It's a bit hard to make it in the recipe because I like to dry hop following the ferment more than a time thing. So the idea is this one is the first dry hop will go in at high krausen, but on the tail end of the high krausen, rather than putting it right at the start and getting most of that aroma blown off, we're going to throw it in at the end. There will still be enough ferment action going on to get some biotransformation and that haze from the hops and things, but I'm not putting it, or not planning on putting it in the first day, maybe not the second day. It sort of depends on this yeast. I haven't used this yeast. We'll talk about that in a little while. It's a London Fog. I'm not sure if it's a fast yeast or a slow yeast. So it's a bit of an experiment, but that's how these things go, you know. So the dry hop's going to be quite simple. Both dry hops will be 20 grams each of the Citra, of the Mosaic and the Sabro. Look, I'll list it as the first one's going to be in for 7 days. I'll guess like the ferment's going to go for about 10 days. So, you know, I might dry hop on the 3rd day, so they'll be in there for 7 days. And the second dry hop will be in for about 3 or 4 days. You know, I'll throw them in near the end and let it sit there for 3 or 4 days, and it should finish off by then. I will dry hop just before it gets to final gravity. So I don't know, it might be 10-15, 1.015, something like that. So I'll dry hop then, and that will, you know, the beer should be finished in a couple of days after that. So maybe the second dry hop will be in for about 4 days. Well, there we go. That is quite a hop bill. Just a little bit at 60-minute. And of course we have 3 additions for 30 minutes in the whirlpool, 3 additions for 20 minutes in the whirlpool, 3 additions for 10 minutes in the whirlpool, 3 additions for a 7-day dry hop, and 3 additions for a 4-day dry hop. Now, if you have a look, we've only really got a dry hop rate of 5 grams per litre, which is very low. But at the same time, we've gotten all that aroma from the whirlpool and stuff. There'll be plenty there. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be using London Fog yeast. Of course, you can use like a London 3 or maybe SO4. It's usually those English style yeasts. Now we look up the top again. Wow, 6.6. It expects the London Fog to get down to 1011. Now, I'm not sure we'll get that low. If it does, it does. But we'll see what happens. I'm expecting it to finish a little bit higher than that, but it might not. We'll know when we get there. 82%. Okay, well, it's a bit more than I thought or expected, but that's okay. So the yeast is done. Have a look at the mash. 65 is where I'm going to mash it, but I'm going to add a mash out, I think. It's just habit. So I'll do a 10-minute ramp time, 10-minute mash out, and 75. I usually go 76. So that's the mash done. We have a look at the fermentation profile. Again, this is sort of a guess. I don't really know this yeast, so I'll just do my sort of usual for an ale. I'll go maybe 6 days for the first step at 90 degrees, and then I'll bump it up after that to maybe 20 or 21 degrees for another 4 days, and that should finish it off. That's sort of my normal ale procedure. Sometimes it's a bit faster, sometimes it's a bit slower. And then cold crash. Cold crash is very important for an NIPA. You really want to knock all that hop out of suspension, otherwise you'll end up with it at the bottom of your keg and it'll taste bitter and it'll taste horrible. So you want to do a really good cold crash, 3-4 days. It's really important, as I said, otherwise you can end up with that hop matter in your glass and you really don't want it there. Bitter, yuck. Now, the water pH is a little high, but we'll add in our salts and see where we go. In IPAs, the water additions are very, very important. So what I'm going to do with this one, I've actually got, I'll show you how to do it anyway, but I've filtered water for mine. This one I've got RO water. I'm going to save my RO water in there. And I'm going to use one of these target profiles because they'll have NIPA, hoppy NIPA. So we get to the water profile. Now these might be different numbers to what are listed on yours because I've adjusted this when I've brewed NIPAs before for what I like. So the two main numbers, of course, are the chloride there and the sulfate there. You want this usually to be about double. So I've got 75 there. This could be 150. I've put it to 200. I noticed if you're sort of mucking around with it, these start going not green anymore, and that's not a good thing. My 200 just sort of sits in well there, and your calcium too, you can change that, make sure that's around 100-ish, and the rest aren't, you don't have to worry about too much. Save. Once you've done that, you've got your water, you've got what you want the water to be, and you just press auto here, and it does all your salt calculations for you, what you're going to have to add. Now, you can't quite see them right now. I've got it so I can add salts to the sparge, the mash, that's the mash. And you can see here that just adding these salts has adjusted my mash pH into a really good spot. So I don't have to add any acid malt. I don't have to add any, like acidulated malt. I don't have to add any acids, liquid acids to the mash. I'm happy with that pH. And sort of with a high pH, you get, at least with stouts, you get a nice sort of creamy mouthfeel, I think, with a higher mash. That's why with like Pilsners, you'd probably see me drop it right down because you want it thin and dry. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm not even going to add any acidulated or anything. Yeah. So when you've done that, save adjustments to recipe, and that puts in your salts. Oops, it didn't bring in the sparge salts. That's all right. That must be in the settings somewhere. We go back to the water, back to settings. There. Oh yes, sparge is turned off. We turn sparge back on. Close the settings. Scroll back down. Make sure sparge is turned on at the bottom. It isn't. So there we've got that turned on. Now we can click auto again. And it's put the salts for our mash and the salts for our sparge. Save adjustments to recipe, and there we go. Now we have a look at this pH, and the pH has actually gone up. It's actually not too high, and as I said before, it might be good to have a high pH for this sort of beer, but I'll bring it down in the green area to keep people happy. And me happy, and hopefully the mash happy. So what I might try is just say 1 ml or so of lactic acid into the mash, and just bring it down into that green area. If you weren't going to use RO water, that's fine. Like if you download this recipe and see this, but you don't want it, if you're going to use tap water, I can only show you what my tap water is like, but it's very easy to change. Go into calculator, the water calculator again. Source is not that anymore. The source would be, so for mine would be West Melbourne. Save. Reset. Salts. Auto. No lactic acid needed. Save adjustments to recipe. And you're still in that 5.6, but that's a green, you know, that's good. That's good. Nothing to worry about. You're right on the edge. So, you know, if you were worried that you're right on the edge, I would not be at all. You could add a mil of lactic acid if you wanted to, or some acidulated malt. It wouldn't need to be very much at all. There you go. 5.5. I'm going to change that back, but you don't need to see that. I've changed the water back to my water source, my RO water. Got the malts, hops, the salts, yeast, mash profile, got the fermentation profile. That's it. I'm really looking forward to this. And as I said before, the only thing to worry about is make sure you really, really cold crash and even let it condition. That's especially if you're getting that real bitterness, because you shouldn't get it. We've worked out all the IBUs. But if you happen to put it in your, into your keg, the hop matter, if it hasn't settled out in the fermenter properly, and settle down to the bottom of your keg, and you start, even though you can't see it, especially in this beer, it'll be those fine little lupins or whatever they're called, lupulins, and they can make it really, really bitter, and a little bit of hop matter that you can't see. But I think that'll do. This video took a little bit longer than I expected it to, but that's what happens. You can change those hops up to your favourite hops. You might use Amarillo. What others did I write down? I did write down in my list some others I thought about using, just in case my Sabro doesn't turn up in the mail tomorrow. This El Dorado, Azaka, like I've used in NIPAs you've seen me use before. They're a great combo, El Dorado and Azaka. Amarillo, that's all I've written down here. But of course, you can try the Sabro. The only reason I've thrown in the Sabro into this mix is I've got a few... I've been drinking a single hop Sabro beer, and it's a little bit weird by itself. Talk about that in another video, but I think it'll mix in well with these. So I don't want it to be shining up the top. I want the Citra to do that, and the Mosaic. But I think it'll add something to it that'll be really nice. All right, that's about it. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this, if you've got any questions, leave questions down below. If you liked it, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thanks to my patrons. Really need you guys at the moment. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one. See you on Brew Day. Brewing this tomorrow. I better go make a starter. Cheers.